MIAA Monday back again this week, a special edition on Tuesday because we have a lot of championships going on in the spring. We have to, shuffle some schedules around, but happy to have Commissioner Mike Racy back on here again with me this week.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, good to see you. It's spring weather, spring championships. Lots of moving parts right now, but I'm glad we get to spend a little bit of time together catching up.
Hey, and this is the first week of the MIAA Spring Championships, and from here on out, it's boom, boom, boom. Every week there's new championships. Does that make it more, I don't want to say go by faster, but it feels like it's nonstop for the next 5-6 weeks across the MIAA sports?
Yeah, it feels that way. It's a sprint to the end of the academic year for us right now, and we're going to crown 8 conference champions here in the next couple of weeks, and tennis and golf and track and baseball and softball, and it's an exciting time of the year. We've got students that are competing and playing for championships, or they're some of the students this is their last collegiate athletic experience. Many of them are preparing for graduation. Many of these students are thinking about what they're going to be doing in a month, where they're going to be living, the new job they're starting. So just a lot of change that comes with the spring and this time of year, but it's great. We love it. We're busy here in the conference office. We're heading different directions. We've got, championships taking place here in Kansas City and Wichita, down in Oklahoma. So we'll be spread out, track and fields in Emporia. And it's all hands on deck for us here in the conference office to make all these things happen.
Absolutely. And you brought up the word change, and that's kind of where we're going to head now with this conversation. A lot of change probably coming for a lot of universities across the MIAA after this academic year. Athletic director change in leadership, university trying to find new athletic directors, president changes, a lot of change happening across several universities, not just happening at one, but there's 4, 5, or 6 that are going to have some different leadership here in the next, academic and calendar year.
Yeah. And it's, I think it's a combination of a lot of things. For one, in the MIAA, we've been blessed with individuals that have found a home on an MIAA campus and made a career out of it, and longevity and service, and they're at a point in their lives where they're looking to transition into a little different pace, a little different interests, able to take up some hobbies they've had on the shelf for a while, and maybe to spend more time with family and friends and grandkids, but also, I think, Chris, it's within the industry, there's just a lot of turnover that's taking place right now with people as we're coming out of COVID. The work that people have had to do to make sure that we're competing and letting our student athletes do what they love to do, but doing it in a safe way, and it's taken a lot of effort, and a lot of people spend a lot of time making these things possible. And I think there's just a lot of turnover that we see at the, among athletic trainers, among communication professionals, just a lot of people involved with intercollegiate athletics. But you're right. We've, a lot of news in the MIAA just recently. Kent Weiser, the athletics director at Emporia State, he's been a great leader in the MIAA. Served on the NCAA football committee. Certainly has had programs that have had great national success. And Kent announced that he's stepping down as athletic director in June. Matt Cochran, the AD at Northeastern State's another one. Matt, fairly new into the AD role, but he's been at Northeastern State for 30 plus years in a variety of positions. And Matt is one of those folks that he's just ready to, certainly doesn't look very old. I look at Matt and I wonder why I'm still working, because he looks like he's got a lot of great years ahead of him, but he's ready for something different, and he'll be stepping down. And then we just, a few presidents have announced that they're moving on and leaving. Steve Scott at Pittsburgh State had announced that a few months back, that this would be his last academic year. We recently saw the news from Northwest Missouri State, where President John Jasinski announced his retirement, and the same at Washburn. Dr. Jerry Farley announced that he will be leaving the university at the end of the summer. And Dr. Jasinski's been leading Northwest Missouri State for almost 15 years. Dr. Farley at Washburn has been in his role for more than 25 years. And so when these things happen, it really changes the way a conference can operate. I'm confident that we've got, we've got great leaders at the rest of our institutions, and I'm sure these universities will put new leadership in place that's that's committed and shares the same vision for what the MIAA is, and excellence in Division II. But that's a lot of change on. I just mentioned 5 of our campuses, and
Yep.
I'm sorry if I'm leaving someone out. Those are the ones that come to mind of recent announcements. But it's hard when an organization goes through that type of change, and we are the MIAA. We are a membership organization, so these are things that we have to be prepared for, and certainly be ready to work with new leaders on these campuses to help continue to chart a great course for MIAA athletics.
And in your eyes, kind of to make the transition maybe smooth, I guess, is kind of what's the biggest thing the conference has to do as a whole? Because I mean, this one isn't recent, but Missouri Western's still in their athletic director search, and Josh Looney left last summer. But I mean, that's another one. So I mean, I guess that's 6 at least that I'm thinking of. But how do you make that transition maybe smoother for the conference as a whole? Because you do have so many moving parts and new faces, new leadership styles coming in too.
Yeah, and Missouri Southern went through an AD and a presidential change within the last 18 months, and so the thing that we have to do as a conference is just make sure that the folks that are moving into these positions know who we are, know how to get a hold of us, know that we have open lines of communication. We spend time with every AD change and every presidential change in conducting an orientation. I like to do those in person. I like to go to campus and sit face to face with whether it's a president or an AD, and try to take time to talk about the conference, how it functions, go through some of our operating bylaws and administrative policies. The thing I try to remember, Chris, is the MIAA is it started in 1912, so it's been around a long time, and I know no matter how how bad I might screw things up, it's going to be here for a long time after me, and that's what we try to talk about with our presidents, ADs, campus leadership, is just to give them a sense of the history of this great conference, and all of the great things we have going on right now, and hopefully these are people that before they take these jobs as AD at an MIAA school or as president of an MIAA school, number one, they understand how important athletics is to campus and the community that they're moving to. And number two, they understand the success and history and excellence that exists in the MIAA. And that's what I've found is that, hey, a lot of these, certainly all the ADs and many presidents are taking these positions because they know what MIAA athletics is, and they understand what Division II athletics is, and they understand how important those things are to the campus that they're now going to set a vision for and help lead.
Switching gears a little bit, hypothetical road we're going to go down a little bit with you shared it with me earlier, but an interesting idea out of Texas, known for football. This is a whole state, a non-Power 5 Texas only football conference, which probably has a lot of people wondering how that would work, but it would be the Division II schools. It'd be the FCS schools, if I have that right, merging together and making I don't know if you call it Texas Powerhouse Conference or whatever you want to call it, but it's an interesting idea that Division II universities and a couple of ADs, I believe it was, that are looking at this as a proposal or an idea to get the ball rolling on something different, at least out in Texas.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept. It's really being pushed by the president at West Texas A&M, which is a Division II school. And, he's put out a white paper and created a little bit of buzz around this idea of a Texas athletic conference. And, where he's trying to break the mold is to say, let's think about an athletic conference in all sports, but especially football, that crosses divisional boundaries. And, why not? If the NCAA is saying, it's time to rethink the way we do things, well, maybe it's time to rethink what conference membership needs to look like. And I passed it on to you just because I thought, it's an interesting idea and it's an interesting time. And certainly the things that they're looking for, especially the Division II schools in the Lone Star Conference and maybe some of these Power 5 schools in Texas, but they're looking at ways to save money, to maybe create greater synergy or alignment with schools you're competing against, maybe to create greater pride and fan engagement and excitement among folks in your communities. Those aren't things that I'm really searching for in the MIAA. Outside of our conference, because we have that already. We have that in the MIAA. Those are really the core principles of membership in the MIAA. We're geographically reasonable. We've got great alignment and mission and purpose among our regional public universities. We've got the most passionate, loyal fans in all of Division II. So those things, those aren't things that we really need to look outside the MIAA for. But the idea that there are things that we share in common with FCS schools or schools outside of Division II, and maybe we need to find ways that those schools could also be members of the MIAA. Those are things that do interest me. And if part of what Division I is working on, Chris, is creating kind of a very different model for intercollegiate athletics and how their membership's organized and how their members qualify and compete for national championships, and it gives us an opportunity to rethink conference membership and who could belong to the MIAA. Yeah, that's something we should spend some time thinking about. But yeah, it's a very creative and interesting idea. And of course, we'd see something like this coming from Texas, right?
Yeah.
To think, we can create the Texas Athletic Conference, and they talked about having a governor's trophy in all of their sports and playing their football championship in the Alamo Dome, and some of those things that are just cool to think about. So I think for anyone listening to this podcast, it's it's something to monitor and watch, and certainly I think these are the types of kind of bold, outside the box ideas that are appropriate at this time in intercollegiate athletics as people are trying to rework and figure out what the NCAA needs to look like.
And with this idea that, Texas may have of this, power Division II FCS conference, some people may say, well, my state could do it. Well, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but a lot of states won't be able to do this by themselves. And like you talked to the MIAA, but at the same time, this out of the box thinking, is that kind of showing us that there's really nothing that's off the table, or there's, rules and guidelines that can't be changed as the NCAA is changing now. There's no bad idea, wrong ideas at this point for the NCAA or members to look at, because everything may be on the table too.
Yeah, I think it has to be, especially at the Division I level, Chris. I think Division I recognizes that, the pressures, the outside pressures that we're seeing on intercollegiate athletics, the NCAA, from Congress, from labor organizations, and perhaps student athletes being organized as a workforce, from courts and legal challenges and antitrust issues. A lot of that, really most of it, is centered on the way that Division I is organized and the way it's operating, and so they have to, within a pretty short period of time, we're talking in the next 6 to 12 months, the transformation committee in Division I, being at a place where they can say, here's the path forward. This is the new NCAA, or this is the new model for intercollegiate athletics. And so I think, unfortunately in Division II, we're not really privy to what some of these conversations are and the things they're working on behind closed doors. But I'm hopeful, Chris, that, it may not be this idea on the Texas Athletic Conference, but I'm hopeful there are discussions about issues that do impact membership and how conferences are organized, and what schools can do to help at the Division I level, to help schools have better alignment, have better relations with schools that share a common purpose and mission, that help for fans of many of these D1 schools have some excitement about rivalries and the teams you're playing. And, all of those things would be positives, not just for Division I, but also how it might impact Division II and our membership. So, yeah, it's time for out of the box thinking, and I'm glad that there's some of this thought that's taking place in the Lone Star Conference, and what needs to happen maybe in Texas.
Get you out of here on this topic and conversation. Some legislative changes possibly coming. Division II MIAA. If you would kind of elaborate on what some of those things that may be coming down the pipeline in the future, and what's kind of happening at that level. Yeah,
so a lot of this is being driven, Chris, by football coaches in Division II, the American Football Coaches Association, and there's a lot of this coming from the Division II Football Committee on things that might improve Division II football, or better position Division II football, and some of these concepts are floating around to see if there are conferences that want to sponsor these legislative concepts and put them in the form of a legislative proposal that would be in front of the D2 membership to vote on next year at the January NCAA convention. We had a conference call with our institutional reps, and for the MIAA, that's our ADs, our senior women administrators, and our faculty reps and faculty representatives. And they met last week, and we talked about a few of these concepts, and that group has actually moved 3 of these items on to our MIAA presidents to make a decision to sponsor. The first one, Chris, involves the idea that in spring practice, that final week of spring practice, a team could have an organized scrimmage with another institution, another 4-year institution. So, Missouri Western, if Missouri Western and Northwest Missouri State wanted to have an organized scrimmage together, and it would probably be very popular in
Right.
St.
Yeah.
Joe or Maryville, they could do that. They could have some, the officials come in, they could have both teams, they could have, an organized spring practice. And our ADs and SWAs and FARs said, yeah, sounds like a good idea, something we should think about sponsoring. The second one is that in the month of July, the proposal was that football would allow student athletes to request specialized skill instruction from coaches. The 3 weeks in July, you could do that 2 hours each week. So a total of 6 hours of skill instruction in the summer months for student athletes in football. Our folks said, yeah, and let's not just have that limited to football. Let's open up July. Any students that are back on campus, any sport that want to do 2 hours of skill instruction each week with their coaches, that's a good idea that would help students help develop their skills during a period of time when they're not worried about classes or academic requirements or those types of things. And then the third proposal, Chris, that our folks have said, yeah, let's move this on to the president's, involves the idea that in football, a student athlete that competes in 3 games or less would not burn a season of eligibility. So if you've got a freshman defensive back and he plays in the first game and then plays a couple plays in game 4, and then you put him in there the last game of the season to see how he's progressed, that student would not usually one of their 4 years. They'd still have 4 years to come back and play. So it's kind of a red shirt rule that provides football student athletes with limited competition. There's a number of reasons the coaches believe this is a good move related to health and safety, and providing student athletes that game experience, limited game experience. We've also seen this. This is a rule that's been around in Division I the last 3 or 4 years, and Division I coaches have found it to be very beneficial. And some of the ADs on our call talked about the fact that we're going to be losing a lot of people that are coming out of their senior COVID years. And, we've got to get some of these young people some experience and playing time before they're in there for every series of every game.
Right.
So, this is one of those opportunities with this type of rule that would provide that. So right now, it looks like the MIAA is going to be on board with all 3 of these concepts, Chris. And, our presidents will have the ultimate say, but hopefully we'll find a couple of other conferences that want to sponsor these proposals, and then we'll put them in front of the membership for a vote next January. I personally think that they're all 3 good things that we need to do in Division II, especially in this period of time of the transfer portal, and making sure that we're doing things for student athletes that they can find in other divisions, doing things to help keep them on our MIAA campuses.
I was going to say, maybe check out the Lone Star, see if they want to, come support something else, because clearly they're already busy down there too.
Yeah, they are. And these are the types of things, though, that I think they would understand the benefit of providing these opportunities to Division II student athletes. Many of these opportunities that already exist in Division I.
Absolutely. MIAA Commissioner Mike Racy, thank you as always for joining me, and we'll be back next week in our next spring championship, and maybe we'll talk some NFL draft too, because I was just thinking about it. There's some guys that could get their name called or pretty quickly after the draft's over too. Yeah, well, we've just seen at the NBA showcase out in New Hampshire that we had a couple of D2, D3 student athletes, including Trevor, do very well in front of NBA scouts. So yeah, we'll see the same thing in football here in a couple of weeks. Who knew Division II and Division III could play, right? I think you and I did. I think the country may start seeing a couple of those too here pretty quickly. So,
Absolutely.
Commissioner Racy, thank you as always.
Thank you, Chris. Good to see you.
Good to see you.